You won't believe what these cameras caught. Watch closely, because some of this won't make sense. Every clip in this video was sent in by real people, Reddit users, TikTok creators, homeowners, and an investigation team. These are raw moments captured on ordinary cameras that suddenly show something extraordinary. Stay with me. Think you've got footage? Send it to submissions@paranormalarchives.com. One-line short clip. Tell us where you filmed it. We'll review it for a future episode. Our first submission comes from Nate, a homeowner who says he's been losing sleep for weeks. Nate wakes up to his dog, a nervous Labrador, pacing at the foot of the bed. She won't settle. He sets up his phone on a dresser and goes downstairs to work, half convinced it's the house settling. The recording starts late at night. Thin, distant creaks at first, like an old house breathing. Then, footsteps, measured, slow, moving across the floor above him. Nate whispers, "What the hell is that?" into the mic, and the dog begins to growl. A low scraping noise follows, as if something is being dragged along the wood. You can hear the dog whine, then stop mid-breath, fixated. The camera is still, focused on a dark hallway. For a full minute, the upper floor sounds like walking, and the occasional soft thud. Then, suddenly, a kitchen drawer opens on its own in frame. Not a slow drift. It slides, clacks, then slams shut. Nate freezes in the clip. He whispers into his phone, "Did you see that?" Then the most unnerving moment. A knife, just a kitchen knife from the countertop, slides off the butcher block and hits the floor 2 feet from where his dog stands. No one touches that counter. Listen to the audio. Nate says, "Get back," low and urgent, and you can hear the dog whimper. It's a small clip, under 2 minutes, but it escalates from domestic eerie to potentially dangerous in seconds. Could this be a loose countertop, or a poorly placed knife balanced on the edge? Maybe. A crooked cutting board or the vibration of someone stomping upstairs could cause an object to shift. But Nate insists nothing was near the knife, and his camera angle shows no hands or obvious interference. Viewers in the thread point out the dog's behavior, staring upward, refusing to move, as the most convincing part of the clip. Animals often react to things we miss. That's harder to fake in a single take. Watch the dog. Her reaction tells you something's wrong. Our second clip is from a Reddit user who goes by Trick. He's staying at his parents' remote house for the holidays. It's the kind of place with a long porch, old wiring, and way more silence than city noise. Trick sets up his security cam to catch porch light flicker because of a dimmer issue. What he captures is stranger. The cam shows a decorated Christmas tree on the porch, lights dull at first. Then a bottle sitting on a windowsill begins to vibrate, almost shaking itself. The dog in the yard lifts its head, ears pricked. The tree blinks, one strand going from steady to rapid flashing with no one touching the plug. A hat resting on the back of a chair suddenly sails off and lands across the room. Trick records himself muttering, "Okay, that's not right." And you can hear the faint rustle of fabric as the hat moves. He rewinds and zooms. There's no wind shown on camera. The windows are shut. The bottle's movement is tiny but consistent, like a tremor underneath it. Alternate explanations here include uneven flooring, a refrigerator compressor kicking in, or an animal off camera. The thread's commenters point to nearby train lines, or passing trucks causing vibrations that translate into oscillation on light objects. That's plausible, yet when multiple objects react, bottle, tree lights, hat, within seconds, it suggests a pattern, not an isolated bump. Listen to the quiet in this one. The silence builds the unease. The normal domestic hum drops away, and every small noise feels magnified. Next, Daisy, a lifestyle content creator, uploaded a clip that went viral for its immediacy. She filmed herself in the bathroom doing a quick get-ready vlog. The mirror, the soft music, the usual chatter. Then a shadow crosses the mirror, elongated, moving from the bath to the doorway, where nothing stands. Daisy's voice cracks as she says, "Did you see that?" She steps back, phone held high, filming the mirror. The shadow is not cast by her or her movement. It seems to cross behind her reflection. After the initial shock, she tests the lights, flicking them on and off, checking the hall. Nothing explains that abrupt darkness. Over the next days, she posts follow-ups. Intermittent knocks inside walls, bed frames that shift overnight, and footsteps she records on another evening, always at odd hours. One line skeptical take. House wiring or a passing car casting light through blinds can create strange shadows. But Daisy argues the movement is not consistent with any light source she could locate. And for viewers, again, the small tell is her reaction. Genuine fear and the subsequent attempts to rule out simple causes add credibility. Notice the timing. It happens every morning, like clockwork. Now a different kind of submission. Two friends exploring an abandoned building. We'll be careful here. Urban exploring abandoned properties can be hazardous and sometimes illegal. We're not endorsing trespass. These two filmed inside an old asylum, asking permission where possible and staying to public areas, they say. They move with flashlights down a long corridor, lined with peeling paint and old doors. The footage is grainy, claustrophobic. Cameras pick up dust motes floating, the beam of the flashlight slicing darkness. Halfway down the hall, the camera hesitates. A hand raises. One of them whispers, "Did you see that?" And at the far end, where the beam doesn't quite reach, a pale, translucent shape rises from floor level and drifts up like smoke that takes form. It's the slowest, strangest moment. The figure seems to elongate, pass through a doorway, then vanish. No sound accompanies it, only the two friends' breaths and the scrape of shoes on concrete. When they review footage, the stills show an indistinct silhouette with a brighter outline than surrounding shadows, as if lit from inside. Is this a trick of the light? Lens flare? Backlighting against dust? Those are reasonable possibilities. Phones and cheap cameras often create artifacts in low light, yet multiple users who watched the high-resolution upload pointed to the smooth, vertical movement and the lack of any nearby source of glare. For many viewers, this clip is the visual apex of the compilation. Not loud or violent, but profoundly unsettling because it looks almost human in motion and entirely unlike environmental distortion. If you rewind, watch the pale shape and ask yourself, what was the camera actually seeing? From in-the-field footage to a formal investigation team now, access the paranormal at Whisper Estate. This group has been documenting reports from a Victorian house-turned-museum where staff and patrons told of small mischievous occurrences around one particular room. Investigators on site claim there's a child spirit named Gary, who is most active near an upstairs door. The team sets up a controlled session, static cameras, EMF meters, and an audio recorder. The lead investigator speaks gently to the room, addressing the hypothesis. "If there's someone here, show us a sign," he says. The camera sits steady as minutes pass in silence. Then, without anyone touching the handle, an old wooden door slowly inches open. Watch the frame. The latch lifts, the door creaks, and a gap widens by a foot. The investigators react audibly, stunned. One team member says on the recording, "Gary?" and someone else whispers, "Did you see that?" They replay the clip later at normal speed and in slow motion. The motion remains smooth and unassisted. There's no sudden yank or human reach visible. Remember the rule: present claims as claims. The team says the door opened after they asked questions. Skeptics raise practical explanations: settling wood, temperature differences causing expansion, or a poorly latched door nudged by vibration. The estate is old. Air currents can move light doors. But to the team, the timing, opening immediately after direct inquiry, feels like responsive intelligence rather than random noise. Listen to the difference between could be natural and seems responsive. The footage itself is clear. The interpretation is where people divide. A quick security cam clip now, one submitted anonymously from a homeowner. A child walks down a hallway, carrying a toy, heading to a bathroom. The camera follows in static black and white. As the child steps into the doorway, a dark blur seems to pass just behind him, aligned in a way that suggests something moving parallel to the child, but offset, like a shadow body trailing. The parents review frame by frame. There's no person visible in previous or subsequent shots. The blur has a height roughly the same as the child, then fades as both disappear from view. The household is unsettled. Their cameras, placed for baby monitoring, have captured the moment at 2 a.m. Possible explanations: lighting irregularities, a pedestrian outside reflecting on a window, or compression artifact. Home security systems sometimes render fast motion as a smear. Yet in this clip, the blur's trajectory suggests an intent to follow, if one accepts that motion at face value. For the family, it's enough to make them sleep with lights on for weeks. Now a short, sharp Reddit kitchen cabinet clip. A woman films while her dog sleeps nearby. They're casually talking about dinner when the cabinet doors in the background open and close, one after another, without visible contact. The dog stirs and moves toward the noise. The woman apologizes nervously to the camera. "I don't know what that was." The clip ends unresolved. Could it be a magnetic latch failing? Sure. Could a loose object inside shift with the vibration of a refrigerator or truck? Also possible. But the footage chain, cabinet opens, closes, then another door opens, gives the impression of a sequence rather than an isolated mechanical failure. These domestic hauntings share a theme. Ordinary homes become sites of small, escalating anomalies. Pets are often the first to react. Objects move in patterns that suggest intentionality. Cameras give us a third-party witness that sometimes contradicts our initial skepticism. Mini hook before the next clip. Listen to the whisper. Pause the audio and hear it again. We return to Nate one more time, because his submission contains the emotional core of this compilation. A mix of fear, potential danger, and the real anxiety of being the only one awake in a house that feels alive. Nate's follow-up video shows the basement door ajar when he's certain he closed it. The dog snarls low. On the stairs there's a faint whisper, no clear words, just breathy consonants, and a shadow at the lip of the stair that lingers. He moves toward it, and the camera shakes. In the background, you can hear his own pulse in the mic. He calls out, "Who's there?" And the whisper stops. Then as he bends down to check the floor, the overhead light flicks on, and the knife clangs again. This time in the sink. Skeptics in the comments suggest a party trick of leaving doors unlatched or neurotic timing. Others point out the possibility of a prankster. Homes sometimes get targets. Nate insists there's no sign of forced entry, and no one has admitted to pranks. Whether that's the full truth or not, the clip's power lies in its escalation, from footstep to whisper to a potentially dangerous object moving. What would you do if something like this happened in your house at 3 a.m.? We're approaching the most visually arresting material in this episode. The clip from the urban exploration earlier deserves a second look. Slow down this part. The figure's motion is subtle, almost melancholic. It doesn't lunge. It rises and fades, more like a memory replayed than a present threat. That aesthetic is terrifying because it looks possible and impossible at once. Before we reach the finale, though, one more short submission. A late-night storefront cam catches a shadow crossing behind mannequins. Busy street? No. Silence at that hour? Yes. The blur seems to pass through glass, and a reflection later shows a darker contour in the empty pavement. These small, quiet clips accumulate a mood. Alone, anyone could be shrugged off. Together, They form a pattern hard to ignore. Now the climax. Two friends filming their exploration of the asylum are at the far end of a long corridor. The footage is shaky, the flashlight beam trembles. For a full minute the camera sweeps the hallway. Then the beam catches a pale outline rising from the floor between the second and third doors. A silhouette that seems to gather itself and stand upright. It moves with a grace that is not quite human, and not quite like a trick of camera noise. It ascends the hallway and steps into a doorway that should have been empty. At that moment, the flashlight flicks wildly, then goes dark. When light returns, the doorway is empty. No footsteps, no objects disturbed. The two friends stare at one another, whispered curses escaping, and decide to leave. On playback, the still images reveal an elongated head and torso with diffuse edges, as if the figure were made of fog at high humidity. Could this be a person in the distance, wearing white, blurred by motion? Possibly. Could it be an editing artifact, or video compression doing odd things to low-light footage? Also possible, but the specific vertical motion, the way the form passes through the space, lingers in viewers' minds. Many say the clip is the most convincing because the camera doesn't cut. Everything unfolds in one live take. We often ask, do cameras lie? This series suggests sometimes they capture things we can't immediately explain. To close, let's return to the Whisper Estate door again, because it introduces a crucial element, the suggestion of intelligence. The investigators claim that a named child presence responds to requests is one that splits audiences. Some viewers are moved by the idea of a ghost with recognizable habits, opening doors, moving small objects. Others caution against anthropomorphizing house settling or mechanical quirks. Across all these clips, the common thread is ambiguity. Cameras give us evidence, sometimes clear, sometimes grainy. But interpretation is where the debate lives. Is something unseen moving through these spaces, aware enough to act? Or are we seeing environmental noise, animals, camera quirks, or the occasional deliberate prank? I've tried to balance the footage here with possible natural explanations: wind and vibration, faulty latches, lens artifacts, compression smears, and misinterpreted reflections. But for many viewers, those explanations don't fully account for the timing, the animal's reactions, or scenes where multiple things behave in sequence without apparent cause. So I'll ask you, which clip convinced you the most? The knife that dropped inches from Nate's dog, the bottle that vibrated in Trick's parents' house, Daisy's bathroom shadow, the pale figure in the asylum, or the door that opened at Whisper Estate after being addressed aloud? Or do you think all of these can be explained by mundane causes? Tell us your theory in the comments, real or fake. If you want more compilations like this, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. Share this with someone who'll watch with the lights on. And one last reminder, if you've got footage, send a short clip and a note to submissions@paranormalarchives.com. We'll review everything, but please don't trespass or put yourself in danger to get a shot. Respect property and the law. What would you do if your camera showed you something you couldn't explain?